Welcome to another episode of Vivid Aquariums TV. I'm Dave, and today I'm going to talk to you about how to maintain and grow SPS coral. The first thing we're going to go through is flow. Now, we all know flow is important in a reef aquarium, but in an SPS aquarium, it's even more important. SPS corals require even stronger flow, and they like changing water currents. So, using a device such as the Ecotech Powerhead or even an Ocean's Motions wave maker to create changing flow is a great way to keep your SPS corals happy. Customers often wonder what's the best type of lighting for an SPS reef tank. And I can say that as long as you're creating the right PAR values, usually between 3 and 500, you can use metal halides, LEDs, or T5s and grow a beautiful SPS reef tank. You can use a PAR meter to take measurements throughout the tank and see what amount of light is reaching a specific coral. And on our website, we actually list the recommended PAR value for each coral. The next thing to consider is to keep the temperature and salinity of your aquarium stable. You want to keep the temperature between 76 and 78 degrees, ideally, and the salinity between 1.025 and 1.026. Stable chemistry is very important for any aquarium, but for an SPS reef tank, it's critical. You want to maintain your calcium, alkalinity, and magnesium at a constant level. Here at Vivid Aquariums, we prefer to use a dosing pump to dose the systems and maintain the levels constantly. Now, some customers will use a calcium reactor to create the same effect, or you can even do manual dosing. The main thing is to keep the levels very constant. If you do that, you're on your way to having good success. The last two components of chemistry you need to really consider are your phosphates and your nitrates. You should keep your phosphate below 0.10 parts per million and ideally below 0.03 parts per million. I recommend using a media reactor with ROFOS to help keep your phosphates low in the tank. As far as nitrates, you should keep them below 10 parts per million and ideally almost 0. This tank runs at about 1 to 2 parts per million, and we've found that to be a very good level. Sometimes a tank can run too clean, so if you have no nitrates, that can actually be a bit of a problem too. Ideally, 1 to 2 parts per million should do great on nitrates. Another thing to consider when keeping an SPS reef tank is parasites that may eat your coral. You gotta think about acropora eating flatworms, red bugs, and even monopora eating nudibranchs. We do have a separate video about quarantining corals, which will give you more detail on these little parasites. Finally, you got to consider what fish you're keeping in your aquarium. Angelfish, for instance, can nip at SPS corals, not allowing them to open fully. If you have a fish swimming down the reef, constantly picking at your corals, you're not going to get the same growth as you would if you just keep peaceful, reef-safe fishes that are not picking. So learn to observe your fish. If you notice them picking at the reef, you might need to chop them and take them out. That's it, guys. Hopefully this is useful to you. Now grow some coral. Thank you.